happens. I just want to do stuff. You know what I mean? Let's hit it.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, that thing is so sick. If I didn't do it myself, man, I'd be even more willing to actually pat myself on the back.
Amazing.
I can't reach that far back though. Yeah. What's up? So everybody, welcome back to the War Room. This is a political sit rep. This is live Tuesday night. Aaron Love Hate Club already in the chat. Jenks, everybody, what's going on? Everybody is going to be joining us here. And for the first time ever, I've been told that if you do the first time, you're allowed to say that you do it for the first time. For the first time ever, we have a guest on the political sit rep, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Adam DeRito. Give yourself an introduction. Tell everybody who you are.
Pleasure to be here, Aaron. My name is Adam DeRito. I'm the National Vice Chairman for the American Veterans First Alliance, President of the state of Colorado. I am by trade, I am a Special Forces parachute rigger, intelligence analyst, and soon to be military industrial specialist in civil affairs in the Army Reserve. And on the real side of the bill, where I actually pay all my bills from, I'm an oil and gas guy, farmer and rancher in the state of Colorado. So thanks for bringing me on the show, and happy to be here.
Fantastic. I'm going to open up with a question, and we're going to open it up to the chat as well. I've got a very important question that I need you to answer before we go through anything. Adam.
Absolutely.
How many 10th graders do you think that you could beat to death before you got physically exhausted? And what sort of area would you fight them in to give yourself the best chance of success? Go ahead.
Oh, like what area? Like a cage match or something?
Anywhere you want.
As a substitute teacher in my spare time, I'd say probably a solid 10, because then those kids get rowdy and they get really crafty, and I would 100% fight them in a dodgeball gymnasium.
Okay. All right. Dodgeball gymnasium. I like it.
I can create some distance, but then I can, outmaneuver and give myself some space if I had to.
I thought for a second, we've been longtime friends, you and I, like we have long been together on this journey through life. And I got to tell you, when you said high school teacher, middle school, high school teacher, I thought for sure you were going to give my answer. I think I could go through at least 100, but here's the thing. And no, Anonymous, no, you're not allowed to have weapons. That's not fair to the 10-year-olds. I thought you were going to say this. Now, I would also do it in a school, but I would do it in a handicap skull. And here's why. Is because it's like the gates of Thermopylae, right? As those little 10-year-olds are trying to get in, you have to be careful. They're not going to figure out how to climb over top. They're too small, right? So all you got to do underneath, easy one. That's just a straight kick. Like you're good there. Yeah. And then basically you can funnel them in and they're right at teep kick, right? So I don't know how many
just create your kill funnel. Right.
Exactly. So that is exactly how I think that I could probably beat up really it's unlimited as far as I'm concerned. It's like, I don't even know how many 10-year-olds that I could possibly beat up, but I'll be honest with you. I think it's probably a lot. Like I got to assume it's a ton, you know what I mean? Everybody, that's not why you're here. Ridiculous questions here in the chat. As always, why are you here? Man, you are here because you want to talk about some political stuff. And we got a whole bunch of stuff going on. As we know, this wild world that we're living in, man, there is a million things that we've got to pay attention to at all time. We're going to talk about the firing of CQ Brown and some other high-level officials. Of course, the mental institution known as MSNBC calls everything racist. We're going to have a couple little palate cleansers in there. We're going to talk about some breaking news that just happened right before we got on with Mike Johnson passing his larger spending bill. There's some big outgrowths of that. We're going to talk about the NSA getting real kinky. You're paying them to be at work and to protect you from any number of threats. They can spy on literally every email that you have, and they're talking about peeing on people and inventing penises where they don't belong. So that's, I'm sure, going to be a good use of your tax money. We're going to talk about the new hiring over at the FBI. We're burning it to the ground with Kash Patel, not only the head of the FBI and the ATF, but Dan Bongino leaving his podcast, the biggest news podcast on the face of the planet day by day. Dan is turning all that in to go be a public servant once again. If you're not tracking, Dan was already a Secret Service agent and served time as a beat cop, but now he is the assistant director of the FBI, first time in history. The MSNBC doesn't want to talk about the fact that Kash Patel is the first person of color, but that's because, again, race is only good for them if they can use it against you. We're going to talk about a politician of the week that I absolutely hate, but we've actually got two of them. There's a secret one I don't know if you guys in the chat can like try to guess exactly what it is, what politician I hate this week. But if you know me and if you've been around the War Room channel, you understand that my hate really knows no bounds. You know, if Kendrick Lamar taught me anything, it's that I could be much more of a hater in any part of my life. And we're going to get into all of that. So we're going to jump right into it. Adam, this story obviously close to our heart. I'm an Air Force veteran. You went to the Air Force Academy. You, man, wild story with that. If you guys aren't following Adam and everything he's doing to bring down USAFA, you guys should check it out. The DeRito Act is going to be hopefully brought into legislation soon. We can talk about that all you want. But the first thing that we're going to talk about now, it's the biggest news out there. We did a great episode on it over at One's Ready, actually. But the Friday Night Massacre. Hegseth defends Trump's firing of Pentagon leaders and says that there may be more dismissals. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insists President Donald Trump's abrupt firing of the nation's senior military officer, one Air Force General C.Q. Brown, amid a wave of dismissals at the Pentagon wasn't unusual, brushing aside the outcry that the new administration is openly seeking to inject politics into the military, which is a wacky statement coming from the AP. He also suggested more firings could come. Nothing about this is unprecedented, said Hegseth. Air Force General C.Q. Brown being removed Friday night as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The president deserves to pick his key national security advisory team. Now, this absolutely started just blowing up my phone because one of the other firings that happened here was the Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, the cuck himself, one Lieutenant General James Slife.
Thank God he's gone.
It makes me feel so good. It's
magnificent. We just got to get rid of Fat Tony to make the circle complete and complete the triangle.
Obese Anthony, listen, I said it in another group chat because, again, this has just absolutely been blowing up every single phone that I've been on, every single group chat, every single message. I have gotten, I don't know how many, like, pictures, or not pictures, but like messages from operators, text messages from my friends, all of those things. And by the way, 100% positive. The comments on that video that we did, it's in two camps, right? It's people that have never served or that served in like one of those support MOSs that are like, oh, it's obviously racially motivated. It's a political thing. I'll tell you who disagrees. The entire Air Force Special Warfare community. Literally everybody has texted and called and said, holy crap. He replaced him with Dan Raisin Kane, which is a badass call sign, by the way. Balance, just absolutely fantastic. It's good. But I was making a joke with somebody that texted me about it, and they were like, hey, you know who's next? Old fat Tony Bauerfein, who got fired out of SOCOM and then works at USAFA now. He somehow got fired into a position because that's what you do in the Air Force. Apparently you fail up. But I was joking around. I was like, you know, the Dave Ramsey thing where you snowball debt, like you can pay off smaller debts and then you take that payment into a bigger debt and then basically you're debt free. With all of my time that I'm not going to spend hating Jim Slife and CQ Brown, I can now focus all of my hate onto fat Tony Bauerfein. And it's really good.
No, I agree. He was a terrible pick for the Air Force Academy. You know, I mean, when you crash a V-22 in Q3 yourself and then try to blame your air crew on it, that's a stellar example of leadership that you should definitely project onto our upcoming officers at a Federal Service Academy.
Yeah.
The problem is half the kids who got accepted to the Air Force Academy now are DEI selects. They don't want to really be there. Half of them don't even want to be pilots. You know, they were out of the GWAT generation, and now they all think their feelings matter, and their teal ropes and all their other rainbow-colored, you know, armbands that they need to wear there now. It's a completely different environment from when I was there, but it's absolutely embarrassing. He needs to go. We need to bring back warfighters. You know, we need another Raising Cane type general to bring him back. You know, that's just the reality of what our Federal Service Academies require, and that's what hopefully Pete Hegseth is going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait, like, to be honest with you. Somebody asked in the chat, hey, can you show us this fat fuck and show me who you're talking about? Anonymous?
Just look up Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy on Google. He'll come right up.
Yeah, how about
your screen and expand it so he fits in the picture frame.
Yeah, here it goes. If you look at this now, something I want to draw your attention to, this is actually like, look at the roles. Like, look at how there's no definition. You can see on my badass square jaw right here, you can see how it squares out nicely. It's because I have every single like filter on my camera right now on this high def camera. But notice here, he is just absolutely, let's get a side profile of this guy. Look at this guy right here. Look at him.
Those buttons stretching across that service dress.
Just absolutely screaming to get out of there. Those buttons are under more pressure than every single white person under his charge, because he has just been trying to like absolutely fire all of them. So enough on
trying to DD-214 themselves off his uniform. So
DD-214 themselves. They're desperate. Like most of the people that he's been chosen to command in his life, they're desperately trying to just get out of wherever he is. So Fat Tony Bauerfeind, Tony Soprano from, I've heard allegedly he just walks around the USAFA campus in his bathrobe like Tony when he's out looking for his ducks, but I can't verify that, so I'll try to find it. But man, let's talk about CQ Brown. So I use the Moneyball example. You know, in Moneyball, very famously, somebody said, hey, if he's such a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? The people, I'll address the outrage, the people that are talking about CQ Brown, what a terrible thing it is that we fired him. If I remember correctly, he oversaw the worst like 6-year period in Air Force history, to include his time as the CSAF and as the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So if he's such a good leader, Adam, why didn't he lead good?
Because he's a terrible person. And I know I have intimate details of this, because I know even my roommate at the Air Force Academy was texting me about this. So when he was the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, he was under the command of the Air Force at the time when they had the most Class A mishaps and pilot deaths in pilot training. And what he developed was something called America's Class. And what he was doing was he intentionally only wanted to recruit minorities specifically. He even issued a memo out to the Air Force about this. And more specifically in pilot training, what he was doing was he was only putting African-American pilots or women pilots into the same class called America's Class. And what he intended to do was graduate all the same people at the same time in this pilot training class. Well, that's not how pilot training works in reality. Now, I was going to be a pilot. It never happened for me. Long story behind that. But what happened is if you hook a flight or you screw up, you get rolled back into a different class and your class moves on without you. He wanted to make sure that every single person in this class graduated no matter what, even if they had the lowest test scores but the bare minimum of passing. So if one person failed the test, they'd have to get rolled back, and so would the entire class, and they'd have to keep going. He was forcing people in the pilot training that didn't even want to fly. There was actually even a lot of talk about this at the Air Force Academy, where minorities who didn't want to fly were being forced to fly, and then white guys were either being forced into casual status at the Air Force Academy for 1 to 3 years, waiting for a pilot training slot to open up until this America's Class got pushed through, or they got space and missiles or some other bullshit MOS, AFSC that they didn't want to do, because he was intended to put these people through. And then what happened was, if you look at the training records, what happened at pilot training, you have bad pilots who don't want to be there. They have a bad attitude. They don't want to fly. They get forced into first-year instructor pilot training, or FAPE, first assignment instructor pilot, or FAPEs as we call them. And they were flipping T-38s on the runways and killing people. Like, guys were ejecting out of aircraft and crashing them all the time in NJET, right? So not only did he's directly responsible for killing people, but destroying Air Force assets and forcing people to fly that didn't want to fly. And then the guys who did have high test scores, and not all of them are white, right? There's plenty of other minorities who were doing fine too, but they were forced to take a back seat, sit at a desk job, and be disenfranchised with the Air Force, and didn't even want to continue pilot training at that point. And a lot of them were completing pilot training on their own, paying out of pocket for it, and going to fly for the airlines, just finished their 5-year commitment. They just got out and went to go fly for United or something. So he was a detriment to Air Force pilot training, backed up pilot training for years, killed a bunch of people, and this is something nobody wants to talk about. And what I really hate is watching all these liberal Air Force Academy grads now come out of the woodwork on like USAFA Alumni Network on Facebook saying like, this is racist. I worked under him. He was an amazing person. They're showing like selfies of themselves of like watching him at the Pentagon and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's great. Thank you that you think he's like the modern Tuskegee Airman, which he's not. Right. But look at his track record and look at the negative influences he had on the Air Force community. And it brought everything down to a negative standpoint. And we were at the lowest morale point during those years when he served as a SecAF.
Absolutely. And, not to mention, we talked about a little bit more on that One's Ready episode too, but when you have a commander that empowers their subordinate commanders, we talked about this a little bit, but it's a military thing, right? Like if your boss, and I'm going to use the simplest example that I possibly can, right? Let's say my boss comes to me and he goes, Aaron, the squadron is super screwed up. Everybody's got hair that's too long. I want you to fix the problem. Now, I'm allowed to satisfy his intent within the regulation and exceed that standard however it is that I want. If I thought that the way for me to fix that problem was to go to every single person in that squadron and go, dudes, you're shaving your head. Women, you're getting a short haircut. You're going to look like Karen complaining in the comments, asking for a manager. I am completely and totally within my authority to do so. When you have a commander that has a formalized racial hiring program and is beholden to these racial initiatives, as CQ Brown was, it empowers his lower level commanders to operate in wild ways. He oversaw the COVID epidemic. He oversaw the death of 2 operators that I was very close to. And I talk about this on that episode. I was very close to both of those men that happened within a month. Those deaths are on his hands. The decimation that he led to, and by the way, his subordinate commander that also got fired, that probably caused the biggest uproar in the operator community, at least Air Force side, was General Jim Slife. General Jim Slife oversaw the extremism stand down. He oversaw the COVID nonsense. He oversaw the safety stand down for AFSOC when we lost those 2 airmen. And oh, by the way, in the aftermath of the climbing incident with Tech Sergeant Peter Cranes in Boise, Idaho, the things that he said publicly were absolutely disgusting. They denigrated Peter's family. They denigrated his memory. And for that, I will not let that slide. I said it on our podcast with Trent, but I'll tell you what, man, you can hurt me. You can punch me in the face. You can ruin my career. You can cause me day-to-day strife and harm. And I think he did cause real issues with me because of those 2 events. I said it very clearly. He is the reason, those events are what led me out of the Air Force. I've never recovered from those. I still have nightmares about them to this day. Right? You can do whatever you want to me, but man, he hurt my friends. He hurt my teammates.
No, exactly. And it's just like in the comments they just said, like, why is he not in jail? He's not in jail because we don't put commanders in prison. And this goes on a long fight that I've been with the DoD for 15 years after what happened to me at the Air Force Academy when I was retaliated against for reporting misconduct by generals, basically. And that's how I went from cadet to enlisted to now going back to being officer over 15 years, right? But what the joke about all this is, from COVID to everything you just discussed, is that we are allowing the best of the worst to lead our military. And that is what happened under the entire, even when they were working against Trump during the Trump administration, we had some good guys in there. But once Biden was in office, I had some of the worst leaders, some of the biggest failures in charge of people, because they purged the military of all the good badasses, right? You want somebody who's not afraid to make mistakes, who's out there, joking around with the guys, like that's why Hegseth says at the SecDef now, right? He was a captain, but at least he was on the line and actually doing the job, right?
Put some respect on that man's name. He was a major. How dare you? How dare you denigrate the SecDef like that?
Whatever. I just love the rank of captain. I think it's the best rank out there. It's like you're like the sergeant of the officer world, and you have responsibility, but you don't. But unlike Lloyd Austin, who wrote himself a Silver Star Award and then had his buddy general sign it, like the guy never actually served legitimately in combat, and that's a disgrace because one of my closest friends was Captain Matthew Rowland, who was killed in Afghanistan in 2015, and he was a special tactics officer, and he gave his life serving for this country and lost his life doing all those things and earned that Silver Star legitimately. And then you have some guy wearing a COVID mask and then a face shield walking around, parading himself as the leader of the U.S. military. And it was just an absolute embarrassment, right? So we've allowed the best of the worst to lead our military for several years now. And it's so invigorating to see that we're actually getting real people with real experience who aren't in the revolving door system and are actually allowed to lead their soldiers because they've actually done it.
Moral courage is something that you need to possess as an officer that leads anybody anywhere. You need to be able to stand up and say no. And these people never said no. I'm glad that you brought up Lloyd Austin. He's actually a great transition into this next one. It's almost like I set it up on purpose, but I didn't. It was just straight up luck. So is it racist? Well, the feelings of MSNBC here should probably help to elucidate
what is going on. And I feel like that's what people across, what is going on here? Just really, what is going on between CQ Brown, and I'm just going to say it, was CQ, we need to ask the question, was CQ Brown fired because he was black? Because it's not that he's unqualified, right? It's not that he was confirmed by the Senate. And then when it comes to Ukraine, I just is Ronald Reagan rolling over in his grave right now? Where are the real Republicans in America?
The absolute worst. I love how that she just speeds right by. Like, I don't know, maybe we fired him for cause for leading the Air Force into depths of which you already mentioned the morale problem. You already mentioned recruiting. You already mentioned the racial division that we experienced inside of the Air Force. How in the world do you think that people can be on the side of the mental institution, the televised mental institution, I can't talk, that is known as MSNBC? Why is it that you think, especially veterans, are reacting like this was some racially based firing?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a racially based firing. It's just like, let's look at the cards. We want meritocracy, not mediocrity in our military. It is absolutely essential moving forward. Like, even look at the Navy secretary, right? Like, or sorry, the chief of staff of the Navy. Like, fucking boats were crashing. They fucking turned one over, almost fucking sank one, and then we shot down a fucking F-18. Like, hello, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is why you were fired. You fired because you suck. Oh, can you imagine being those fucking guys? You're like, yeah, guys, great mission. We're gonna go back to the carry, and all of a sudden, like, you know, Fox 2, holy fuck, we got to punch out of our own jet. Like, I'm happy that they fucking lived, but like, what a fucking trip that must have been, right?
Oh my god, I forgot that happened.
And you know this because you've been in combat zones too, but it's just like the amount of fuck ups that had to require for you to be ordered to push the fucking button. Like, what the fuck were you doing?
Right.
What in the actual fuck were you doing? Like, and even the enlisted guy who was in charge of hitting that button to launch that fucking surface to air missile, even I would have been like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. Like, obviously that's an F-18. Do you not see that? Like, it's not like they didn't have him on camera. They didn't see him on radar. He didn't have like IFF activated in his aircraft, identify friend or foe, right? Like, there are so many missteps, so many failures, so many commanders that have failed our fucking military. And yeah, and correct, they almost shot down 2 of them. They got out of that one, right? But it's just like, what are we doing? And yes, it is okay to fire people. And I think people forget the president of the United States, when you're an officer, right? When you're commissioned, you're appointed to that position. You could be fired at will for any reason, right? You are not entitled to be an officer, just like you are not entitled to any position in the government. If the president of the United States or your commanding officer decides to relieve you of command or relieve you, that's it. You're done. There's no question about it. And we don't even make a race thing about it. Even Trump's statement was very, very combative about it. He's like, thanks for your service. You did a great job. On to the next. And by the way, the rest of you are fired too. Moving on. Right? Like they did what they were supposed to do. This is what I voted for. Get over it.
Yeah. I just don't understand it. The buck stops with the commander, everybody. The buck stops. All of these problems, everything that we've had such a problem with, everything that has stopped our ability to recruit people that want to fight and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, at least in the Air Force, can be pinned to one man. And that one man is General CQ Brown. And then unfortunately, he was promoted up. It's hilarious that Lloyd Austin and General CQ Brown will sit here and talk about racism and how they were held back from some positions. CQ Brown was the first black CSAF of the United States Air Force. I got to say it. If we're racist in the Air Force and he had to deal with all that, we're really shitty racists because we elected a black. We're the worst racists on the face of the planet. Like, I can't believe it. It's really, really tough. It was absolutely hilarious.
But I'll even say this. Like, when I was in CENTCOM during that entire administration, like, we're sitting there trying to get strike orders put through, and we literally had to make phone calls to the White House to get authorization to do airstrikes for when our guys are getting shot at. Like, our guys are sitting there going like, hey, man, we're taking fire. And they're like, sorry, we have to call the White House. What do you mean we have to call the White House? Like,
sorry, bro, reception's bad.
Commander in CENTCOM. And at the time, like, Carrillo wasn't even allowed to give the execution orders to go through. Company commanders, battalion commanders, they were not allowed to authorize their troops to return fire, even when they were being engaged. Literally, the White House had to authorize every single combative action, whether it was a HIMARS launch or an airstrike. Like, it was. And then by the time that came through, when Joe Biden woke up from his nap, like, the threat was gone or the guys bailed out. Like, so you literally put American service members' lives in danger in Syria and Inherent Resolve over these things from your absolute utter incompetence. And it's unacceptable. And that's not the military leaders we demand.
It's well said. And we need an organization. We need administration that is willing to say these things. They're willing to say the hard things. And one of those people is the aforementioned Pete Hegseth. This is probably one of my favorite videos of the entire week. So Pete Hegseth was sitting in a room and basically is answering questions from reporters here to set it up. So he gets a question from a reporter. Let's see how my boy Pete Hegseth went ahead and answered this one.
Why did you select an underqualified retired lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
I'm gonna choose to reject your unqualified question. Who's next?
So good. The dude just goes on with his life. I'm going to choose to reject that question. He's talking there about Dan Raising Cane. Let me tell you from the inside, let me peel the curtain back a little bit, because that's why you come here to the War Room. You want to talk to some
fucking
people.
ALO. The guy was a fucking ALO.
He worked for pilot. He worked for special operations. He was the guy that should have been promoted if it wasn't for these hiring practices that put CQ Brown in the seat. Every single person that knows Dan Raising Cane absolutely says nothing but the highest from him. I still have not gotten one, and that's largely why nobody wants to talk about Raising Cane in the larger like MSM sphere, because his reputation is above reproach. It's literally the definition of above reproach. So we finally got the right guy in there, man, and I'm here for it. Do you think that there's hope?
Another thing that really pisses me off about the comments they make about Kane is that they're like, oh, well, he ended up being like a guard guy, like an air guard guy, and like guard people like don't count, don't have enough experience. Okay, well, granted, I was a guard guy, I was a reservist, I was on active duty, I've done all three. right? And I will tell you that some of the best people I've worked with are in the Guard and the Reserve, because they have like a civilian common sense approach to a lot of things. And the guy's got thousands of flight hours. The guy's got a shit ton of experience. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Like, I remember like probably the funniest story I had in CENTCOM was we had our S6, our fucking, the guys who plug in Ethernet cables, apparently, right? Our entire SIPRnet went down in CENTCOM. And this kid was a Guard guy, specialist. He was a Google engineer. This guy was making like $300K a year, but decided he got to go deploy to CENTCOM as a Google engineer and run the S6. And he literally said, I can program and get us out of this and recode this in about 3 hours and we'll be done and back online. And literally the bureaucracy of, nope, we have to let the DoD civilians in Kuwait reprogram everything. It took them like 2 weeks. We didn't have supercomputers or secret or TS access for 2 weeks. And this kid literally was like, I'm going to just go back to playing Nintendo 64 on my nipper because I know how to program that. And you guys are all fucking retarded. I'm going to literally let this place burn down and none of you can send emails because you guys are too proud to understand that. In the Guard and Reserve, sometimes there is levels of experience amongst those soldiers, airmen, Marines, Space Guardians, whatever you want to fucking call them, that are so much more that are so much more qualified than anyone on active duty because of their experience. I mean, that's how I got put into an intel slot. I wasn't even an MOSQ intel guy, but because of my experience in oil and gas and my master's degree and all the things that I've done, I had more knowledge about what was going on the ground, what was going on in the illegal trades, what was going on with the weapons trafficking, with explosives and everything else. Because I worked in explosives in the oil field, than most people did in the 35 series in CENTCOM. And at the end of my deployment, I ended up briefing the fucking G2 for General Kurilla as a specialist because the E7s in country didn't even have the level of knowledge as I did, right? And that's because my battalion commander, he was a great guy, Lieutenant Colonel Nicey. He actually respected my experience and let me run with it. And I tell you, I think that's the best thing that commanders can do now. If you're an active duty reserve guard guy now, if your people are really smart and they're really capable, even if they don't have the rank, let them run with it, give them a little bit of leash, see what they can do, and you would be surprised at what they're going to produce for you if you give them a little bit of trust.
And I knew I brought you on for some reason. That's going to lead into a later discussion we're going to have in a couple topics here about what exactly qualifies you to work for some of these high-level positions. But first, let's have a little palate cleanser, shall we? So promises made, promises kept. DJT, the man, the myth, the legend, the once and future king of America. And you can cry about that all you would like, but he made good on a promise today. Mike Johnson was able to get this little spending bill through. Massive win. This broke right before we got on, and I put it in here. No taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. How are you feeling about the first 40 days of this administration, my friend?
I can't believe it's real. Like in my lifetime, never did I think I'd actually see real dudes actually doing real work. Because I mean, like the way this comes down to is every appointment, are they the most so-called resume experienced person per DC? No. And that's exactly what I voted for. I want normal people who have a little bit of experience in at least what they say that they do, but I want them to come in and I want them to just crush, bring their civilian experience, bring common sense reforms that actual Americans want. Like I work in the oil field. I don't want to get taxed on my overtime. It's like 8%. Go fuck yourself. Right. I earned that time. I want to get paid for it. All these waitresses, all these service workers who work off of tips, even our beloved strippers who we've all engaged in the military, right? Those girls work hard for their money, right?
They're just trying to go to med school, baby. Let her keep a little bit more of that.
Or like, what is it? Beautician, whatever they call them. I don't even know.
Estheticians.
We need to support. Donald Trump supports our estheticians. And now, if we didn't have estheticians or Zyn, how are we ever going to win the war against China? Okay?
I'm a Velo guy. I got one in right now. They're not sponsoring the podcast, but they absolutely should because it gives me the fuel to talk about this stuff and not want to kill myself every day or at least try again. I'll tell you what, man, the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. When you're talking about how to give people back some of that money, that's the first way that we do it. I want to give a quick shout out. Gabe, now do tax on property. Amen, brother.
Yep. Take away that tax. I bought that land. It's fucking mine. Why do I have to keep paying you for it? Am I renting it from you? It's mine. Yeah. And my future kids. Like, get off of it. It's mine.
Well, you know how property tax came up. So, back in the day, the government, they had these farms, right? So farmers would go out, this big plot of land, they would be like, hey, this is mine. They'd put a fence around it. Somebody would come next to them and go, hey, I'm going to start my fence over here. And then they're like, right. Then you would pass that down. Well, eventually the government wanted a piece of that pie. So they went to him and they were like, hey, listen, we want to tax your thing. And they're like, we just grow food here and we support our family and that's how we live here. So what they started doing is go, okay, well, sell us an acre of it and then you can use that to pay your taxes and then whatever. That's why You can look right now on any map. If you look at West Virginia, Montana, Wyoming, any of these places with wide open spaces, you have these privatized pieces of land, and then you'll have like a road, and then you'll have like a bunch of government owned land around it. And then that's really like the property tax came from there. They were like, okay, cool. Well, we're just going to start doing that. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that I am getting taxed on money that I earn. I pay a tax on the money that I earn. Then I pay a tax on the house that I buy, and I pay a tax on the land that that house sits on. And then I have to pay a recurring tax on a piece of land that I was already taxed to buy and taxed to live on. The fact that you're going to tax me property taxes to continue to live on land that I already bought is absolutely freaking ridiculous. Gabe, that's a great comment, brother. I appreciate you. We got the smartest folks in the chat anywhere. Hey, if you haven't already shared this show with everybody you know, please do so. We're trying to do this big in 2025. So tell people to come watch the political sit rep. We're going to have more guests on like Adam. Adam, you're getting a lot of love in the chat, bro.
Well, yeah, you gotta like, share and subscribe. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you want to look me up on Instagram, I'm Adam.DeRito2010. You have to look it up specifically because I'm shadow banned because I shit talked the DOD for 4 years in court because they fucking hate me. Oh God, they hate me so much. No, it's good. Maybe Meta will give me my stuff back eventually. But you know, it's just absolutely. I think the Social Security one is really good too because here's the thing: if I'm already paying into the retirement system, why the hell am I paying for my money to get retaxed for like the 4th time just so I could retire on the money that I already put in the system? Right? It's insane. It's
absolutely.
Insane. And I'm glad we're having some common sense financial reforms in this country because we just like to blow money, like the B Street fucking strip club down at Fort Carson. So
to speak. And now we're going to talk about other people that are getting paid by your tax dollars that are blowing things that they absolutely should not. So this broke wide in the open. The NSA secret sex chats were leaked. The quote intelligence community.
I have so much to say about this.
This is so good. So it was one of the most powerful parts of the American national security apparatus. In theory, it works tirelessly to keep the nation safe. But according to internal documents that we obtained over, this is the City Journal, apparently, some intelligence agency employees have another on-the-job priority: sex chats. There are basically backroom sex chats where these employees discussed hair removal, estrogen injections, the experience of sexual pleasure post-castration. Quote, and I can't wait till somebody clips this. Get your little fingers ready. Quote, "Getting my butthole zapped by a laser was shocking," said one transgender identifying Intel employee who spent thousands on hair removal. Look, they continued, I just enjoy helping other people experience boobs," said another about estrogen treatments. "One of the weirdest things that gives me euphoria when I pee, I don't have to push anything down to make it aim right," a Defense Intelligence Agency employee said.
Jesus Christ. Okay, look, as an Intel guy, I have a lot to say about this. Okay, so yes, Merc chats and everything else on the background are extremely entertaining, but mostly we just talked about killing goat fuckers.
That's
excuse
it.
my French, but it was way fun.
That's not French. Fact check, real-time fact check. That was not French.
Fact check, lie. CNN's gonna come after me now, or they're gonna block my fucking Facebook next. But those chats are funny, and I literally made a lot of friends I'd never even met overseas and through these chats. But let me tell you a secret that most people don't know about the Intel community. I swear to God, most of the intelligence people in the United States military or working for the government or in the DIA, NSA, they're all autistic. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, so there was this guy, and I won't use his real name, who works at Buckley Space Force Base. He is literally in charge of programming all of the orbits of our spy satellites. Like, this is his job. Let's just call him Kevin. Kevin is so fucking smart. He has to take exactly 39 steps to the shitter inside of the SIF, right? So this guy, he doesn't go to meetings. He thinks he's too smart for meetings. So every time there's a meeting, you don't tell Kevin to go to meetings because he just berates everybody and then he loses his mind and starts smashing his computer, right? So like Kevin has like 37 post-it notes all over his monitor. He sits in his own corner, has his own cubicle, and he has to take exactly, I think, 37 steps to go to the shitter. Well, one day there was this new guy apparently, and he walked in front of him and he had to take like 39 steps. Kevin went into the shitter, shit in his hand, and made a shit casso on the inside of the wall of the bathroom because he got so mad and frustrated that somebody messed up his like 8-second extended walking time to the bathroom. Nobody said a thing. They came in there, scrubbed the shit off the walls, and let Kevin go right back to work like nothing happened. Because if anyone fucked with Kevin, he would just threaten to quit, and then our satellites would just crash out of the sky, apparently. These are the people that mostly work in the intelligence community, and them discovering these chats does not surprise me whatsoever. And all of them, maybe minus Kevin, because Kevin might burn your house down. Just fire all of them. Just get rid of them.
I had a joke. So my current office right now has no windows, right? So I came out of it one day and somebody was like, "Oh man, it's really late. I didn't even know that you were here," because we were all leaving, later. They thought I had bounced out to a meeting earlier in the day. And I was like, "No, man, living in that office with no windows, that's how it is." And then I shared the story because a lot of these folks aren't military. And I was like, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg discussion. Do the weird people become weird because they have to work inside of these vaults? Or do we just attract people that want to work inside of vaults where they're not allowed to have their cell phones for like 8 to 10 hours a day? We had an intel guy that we deployed with who was, no kidding, a brony. Like, he looked like 5 pounds of cottage cheese in a 3.5 pound Ziploc bag. He was crazy, but he was, no kidding, a brony, and he was unapologetic about it. He would show you the new brony that he made. He would tell you the lore of the My Little Pony that he had made. I cannot make this up.
And that's why I think I was somewhat resented in CENTCOM, was because I wasn't really an intel dude, but I was an intel slot. But I got to hang out with the NSA, the FBI, the DIA, and go on missions with civil affairs dudes and actually go on ground because I knew how to use a fucking weapon and wasn't retarded. And these guys were not allowed to leave the box ever because they're you literally can't tie your shoes and you're going to trip and kill yourself going to the DFAC, right? To eat your 14, Domino's pizzas or whatever it was, right? So it's the intel community is very strange, and I'd say there's the operator, so-called intel dudes who are actually trying to do the right thing and actually get out in the front line and actually actually provide teams and ODAs and PJs and other stuff for the stuff that they need. And then there's the guys that are way smarter than us, but they're really good at making PowerPoints, and we need those guys. So they have their place. But maybe sometimes just don't let them walk outside because they're going to hurt themselves. Because if they don't wear sunscreen, they'll burn like a bunch of daywalkers.
The freaking daywalkers, indeed. Christopher Rufo over on X. You can follow me on X at Aaron Loves America. I would love to have a bigger following there, but I just got too many things and I never really prioritize it. So I basically just shit post. But follow me anyway. What's up? Christopher Rufo had a great breaking story on this, as Christopher Rufo always does. This is a real Chris Rufo. This is some of the unclassified leaked documents where they're talking about having a non-gendered birth, which will raise them up just correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care if you go home and you want to dress up like an animal and you really believe that you're a cat and that's how you want to live your life and you want to poop in a litter box. If you do that inside of your own house in your own time and you don't involve me in that nonsense, I don't care. But every single person here that's blacked out, all of these users are getting paid with your tax dollars from the CIA and the NSA. Now, I don't know if you know this. The NSA can listen to every single phone call. They've got all of your emails. They've got every single thing that you do. No EP,
true.
No VPN, no Tor, no fieldcraft that you can do or tradecraft that you can do can get away from these folks, and they will hunt you down for daring to be a normal person in America if they decide that you were the one. The ideological capture of these intelligence organizations is far-reaching and it is terrifying. How do we fix the intelligence community?
We literally have less human guys on the ground now because of the systems that we use. You just have to post something on Twitter and you're getting a fucking MC or MQ fucking 9 over your head in about 15 minutes. That's how good we are at what we do. We can read how many pubes you have from space. You're fucked. Our technology on the intelligence side is actually legitimately scary. And I'm not even really exaggerating at those capabilities. It's terrifying, right? But when you said the litter box person, we actually had a litter box shitter on deployment, and it was a female. And she they were doing a fucking barracks inspection, and they're like, "What is that smell?" And they thought there was an actual cat because they found a litter box under one of the soldiers' fucking racks. And they pulled it out, and this girl did not want to go out to the shitters in the middle of the night because the shitters are way far away from the sleeping quarters, and she would just take a dump in a litter box every night and just scratch it over it, and then she would empty it once a week, and people just thought that they were keeping one of the stray cats in the barracks.
And these are the people that you trust while you sleep to guard the borders of America. And oh, by the way, you pay them a hefty sum to do so. Now, I love me a good transition, not like the transition those idiots were talking about there, but I do love the transition to start talking about, well, here, Adam, we have completely and totally just taken away everything that we believe or that we trust in our institutions. And the outrage has begun again. Dan Bongino, hired by Trump under Kash Patel as the assistant director of the FBI. In early September 2024, federal prosecutors presented evidence of a striking, unexpected controversy The Justice Department had apparently uncovered evidence of a Russia-backed media network. As the scandal unfolded, far-right podcaster Dan Bongino used his own program to extend some advice to his ideological brethren. Those caught up in the mess, Bongino said, should not cooperate with the FBI. Oh, do you mean the same organization that was unable to stop 2 assassins that shot Donald Trump in the head once and got within 150 meters of him a second time?
Yeah, whatever happened with that? And the Las Vegas shooting and like all these other things that have been covered up, right? Like absolutely ridiculous.
How about the January 6th pipe bomber? That I said it on Instagram the other day. That's the biggest story that I want to know about. You're telling me the January 6th pipe bombing, if you guys aren't tracking, we have the guy on video, hundreds of combined hours of CCTV. The FBI released what it is, their video they had. They reduced the frame rate. They killed the biometric ability to read who it is that they was. And then they were directed to stop that investigation 2 weeks afterwards. Now, there's a handy tool that I like to use, and it's, what is the MSM not talking about? Kamala Harris talked about, I should say her name extremely inappropriate, Kamala Harris, the entire time when after she was in place via a coup, thanks to Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and some other high Democrats that threatened Joe Biden with the 25th Amendment to get him to drop out of the race. We all know that this is true. Kamala Harris did not talk about that one time. Her motorcade drove right by it. So for a woman that talked incessantly about January 6th, talked incessantly that it was the worst thing since Pearl Harbor and Civil War and 9/11 combined, why would she not mention the fact that she was almost killed by a pipe bomb, that her motorcade drove within 15 feet of it? Why did she never mention that one time? Why did it completely get memory hold, like the Vegas bombing, like the ISIS shooting, like the, I went on I Came With Fire, shout out to those boys. I went on there and we did a deep dive into the Vegas shooting, the biggest mass shooting in American history that everybody just forgot about. Stephen Paddock is just some lone wolf. The FBI came out and was like, we don't know, dog. What's going on? So yeah, no wonder the FBI doesn't have the trust in institutions. So everybody is just apoplectic.
And everyone forgets this guy. This guy was a Secret Service agent. Like, this guy is an extremely competent operator, like literally. This guy has served at extremely high levels of confidence. And now all of a sudden, because he's a podcaster and he's so-called far right, now he's a problem because he wants to come out and legitimately just slam all these horrible decisions that were made by the FBI. And I can say this even as somebody, I was deployed to January 6th when I was in the Guard with 19 Special Forces Group. Like, we had to take our name tags off and all our fucking unit patches, and we go out there with all our cool guy gear. And the biggest threat that I saw when I was out there, even I was walking through Nancy Pelosi's office, I was clearing every single room, was some dude in rollerblades with a fucking rainbow Speedo on, listening to Mariah Carey Fantasy, fucking ripping down in like 20-degree weather with an LGBTQ flag in front of a staffer that I was escorting to her car. And I sat there, just went like, what the fuck is going on right now? And then I had to go sleep in a parking lot and eat pizza and then shit in an overflowing fucking porta potty for like 3 weeks. It was a good time. And then the really funny thing, that whole inauguration thing was a giant scam, because we had to like surround the entire inauguration so nobody can get in front of it. Then we had to put all these anti-climbing fence up, and there was like maybe 50 people at the inauguration, but they just zoomed the cameras in really far, so it looked like there was a bunch of people there. The entire Washington Mall was like fucking empty. Like it was the weirdest con like I've ever seen. And I could say that as somebody who was on the ground for like several weeks during the January 6th riots.
And we teased a little bit earlier, everybody wants to talk about Merit. They did the exact same thing. I said it on a different platform, but like, are we going to do this again? Are we going to talk about Dan Bongino and like the internet? I love the internet because everybody with a phone just keeps becoming like the world's #1 subject matter expert on everything. Like, first they were COVID experts, then they were vaccine experts, then they were Ukraine war experts. And now we have people that are totally willing and able to go on the internet and tell us about how these people are unqualified. And they're like, well, Daddy, he's just some podcaster. I'm like, you guys are using the same playbook that you try to use with Hegseth. He's just a TV host. He's not qualified. He doesn't have the current qualification. Like, shut the fuck up. It didn't work.
Yeah, look up the requirements. Look up the requirements for these qualifications for these jobs, right? And you'd be surprised. Literally, it's just like the Secretary of Defense is a civilian of the United States.
Right, that's it.
That's pretty much it.
You know, you need to be the president. You need to be 35, be a natural born citizen. It's pretty much freaking it. You can't be a felon. It's pretty much it. You have to be able to just be the president. The other thing that people, refuse to talk about here because it would undermine their narrative. Oh, hello, Simon. I do be good. So the other thing that we're not talking about here, and this speaks to Dan Bongino's character, is let's just look real quick here. His salary was an estimated 4.9. I think that's super low. Between, some people are estimating between 10 and 30 million a year. He has the biggest podcast, the biggest live news show. When he made his announcement that he took the assistant deputy director job, He had 250,000 people in the chat. That is 7 times of the highest ranking MSNBC show in any demographic. He had 250,000 people. The Bongino army, shout out to those cats there because they are fervently for Dan Bongino. He's stepping away from all of that for a $221,000 salary. Pete Hegseth's salary was an estimated $2.3 million in 2024. His role is $256,000. They're not in it for the money. They're in it for the love of country. They're pure patriots. I tend to agree with Mila Loves Joe, Mila Joy, over on Instagram. Does any of this 100%. Matter? Are they just grasping for straws?
No, but even like Donald Trump was the same way. $400,000 year salary, donates it every quarter. The guy works for free, right? And people don't understand this. The only other president to do that in history was JFK. They assassinated him, right? So people need to put this into context. When you have people that are actually in to serve their country and have a duty and loyalty to the Constitution, money doesn't matter. Doing the right thing, being a moral and ethical person are extremely important things that we just have not had in government, especially since I joined in 2006. Like since I was 18 years old, we have not had those people. We've had the revolving door. We were sold a bill of goods that was a bunch of bullshit. We listened to a bunch of bureaucrats, and this goes for corrupt Republicans too. You know, anyone who does a little bit of research on 9/11 and Iraq and Afghanistan knows that a lot of our friends died for no fucking reason. You know, but we all joined under the right, for the right reasons, doing the right thing. And some of our friends gave their lives for those reasons and sold that bill of goods. But at the end of the day, this is we're done with it. The millennial generation and even the Gen Z and Gen Alphas need to get out there and take back this country. You know, you can either be a resident or you can be a citizen. You can sit around shit and complain on Facebook and Instagram and be a resident, or you can be a citizen and participate in your local democracy. Go run for office, go learn how to tailor a suit, and actually take this country back that your boomer parents fucked up for all of us for the last 20 years.
Man, is there a worse generation than the boomers? Those guys absolutely decimated.
No, and I blame my parents. My parents are a bunch of goddamn hippies. You know, and I'm just like, Mom, you voted for this. You literally voted and sent me and all my friends to war, and some of them didn't come back. She's like, yeah, well, you got to be nice about it. I'm like, no, Mom,
no, I do not.
We're not doing this.
And again, Adam, it's like we're mind melded, man. Like I want to talk about exactly why Dan Bongino was put in there. So this broke just recently, February 25th.
Can't wait.
The FBI right now, this organization that we're supposed to promote from within, and that's the big chorus of people's like, oh, the deputy director the assistant director is always supposed to be somebody from inside. You want to promote somebody that knows what to do with the FBI. I'd say that's farthest away from what we can do, because right now, at least by this report, the FBI is allegedly deleting Jeffrey Epstein records. A whistleblower speaks out. So as we can see here, I'm going to play a little bit from Benny Johnson. We'll let him tell you himself.
You maybe give us a closer in perspective as to what the subversion is happening inside of the building right now. I mean, it's obviously you're going to have like an antibody reaction to somebody like Cash.
I'll give you a big one that I heard recently, which was already passed on, is that there are FBI servers that are sort of standalone, and people inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. And I was told that once these files are destroyed, the way they are set up, that even Elon Musk could not restore them. So that's happening right now as we speak. That's happening with Kash Patel being the director. It was happening before he got there. And so that subversion, like I said, started immediately.
And that is exactly why we need
to go to jail.
All of them. Immediate jail.
They need to go to jail.
Special directly to jail. Directly to jail, to a special jail. Send them to Gitmo. Send them wherever. I don't care that the tents aren't ready to go. I don't care.
Files, you print that file, straight to jail. Undercooked, overcooked fish, straight to jail.
Undercooked fish, straight to jail. Overcooked fish, oddly enough, straight to jail.
Also jail.
Don't pay taxes, directly to jail. I just can't believe it. Like, people will talk out both sides of their mouth, and they'll talk about how the FBI is this institution that we're supposed to revere, and my standards and my norms and my blah 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 blah. I can't believe they hired Dan Bongino. Meanwhile, inside of the building, these people are actively hurting America and deleting these files that we want so badly.
Because they're not public servants. They're selfish bureaucrats. And these people just need to be eliminated. And this is why we're firing everybody. And no, I don't care about your federal job that you got fired from. I don't care that we're reducing the workforce. The amount of waste, fraud, and abuse that has gone on in our government since we were 18 years old is embarrassing. And it needs to be rectified immediately.
Yeah, totally agree. And that brings us, everybody, to my absolute favorite section. Now, I talked about it at the beginning of this one when we opened up. There's actually two politicians that I hate. There's going to be a really good one that we're going to end on. We're going to start. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to Google if this woman actually married her brother to bring him to the United States of America, to pay for school, and to actually get him citizenship. Don't you dare Google the fact that she may or may not have married her brother just long enough to get him into the United States of America. House Republicans vote to remove Rep. Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. Good. The Somali congresswoman that pretends to be an American is finally removed from her committee positions. House Republicans have voted to remove Minnesota Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee, citing past controversial comments. You know, anti-Semitic comments talking about killing everybody that she disagrees with on a religious ideological level. In her first term, Omar drew criticism from Republicans and Democrats alike for tweets that involved anti-Semitic tropes. She apologized for those tweets, but has remained outspoken about the influence of Israel and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, a powerful pro-Israel lobby on U.S. politics. Now, I don't tend to like the people that she's talking about there, but I don't think she should hold her committee opinions for that. So she was finally, no, I don't want to subscribe. Get out of here. I don't like the fact that she should be able to hold those committee opinions. And it really came to a head because she decided to call all Americans, it seems, or at least all Trump voters, idiots. And we're going to check that video out here in a second, and we'll let you decide for yourself.
Conservatives are accusing Ilhan Omar of calling Trump voters all idiots, but was she talking about all Trump voters or just Republican members of Congress that she's had feuds with? Let's watch and let you decide.
I thought I'd seen everything, and I've seen a lot of attacks on you. But now you have a Republican colleague, dare I say, in the House saying to deport an American citizen, an American lawmaker, an elected representative. How do you deal with that?
I mean, these people are just idiots. I really, you know, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
So now listen, you can try to square that circle however it is that you want. However it is that you want. You can go ahead and try to tell me that she didn't just say that everybody that voted for Donald Trump is an idiot, the dumbing down of America. You know, I would even go as far to say that she straight up just said that everybody in America is an idiot.
Yeah, where's Mike Durant? Gordy's gone, dude. I'll be outside. Like, seriously, man. Did we forget about what happened, like, in Somalia? You know, I'm pretty sure the average IQ in Somalia is like 68, and that's not even an exaggeration, right? And anyone who's deployed and served in the Middle East, you know what one of the most shocking things I saw? The amount of disabled and mentally retarded people in the Middle East. And I'm not saying that as a derogatory term. Why? Because they believe in inbreeding, right? And this is what perpetuates their culture towards violence. And it's a mental condition. It really is. This is why they're in a constant state of war. This is why they have so many genetic deficiencies. This is why every dude there weighs about 120 pounds soaking wet, because they don't eat protein and they're genetically deformed. And I don't mean that as a racist comment. That is an actual factual thing that you can look up all the research on this. And somehow she decides to come here, marry her brother using her cultural, ideology to somehow get a green card. And this person is put into an area near Dearborn, Michigan, which is one of the most heavily Somali concentrated areas in the country, next to Greeley, Colorado. Ironically, after the Black Hawk Down incident in Greeley, Colorado, we were designated as a sanctuary area, because I live near Greeley, by the Clinton administration, where all these Somali refugees were put into the United States in Greeley, Colorado, in a rural community. Now it's the third largest city in Colorado. It's rapidly expanding, and you can see that these people just do not hold American values. Now, look, I'm all for anyone wanting to immigrate to the United States and become an American citizen and live by our values. But when you are bringing over your culture and you refuse to assimilate to the American ideology and the Constitution, you don't belong here, right? And Ilhan Omar, the fact that she was even in Congress is not only an embarrassment to what our country stands for and all the people that have worn the uniform over the years, but the fact that she has the balls to come in here and say that every American is stupid, and she's advocating for Somalia. Look up her interviews of her interviewing all these Somalians. She's like, I'm here to fight for Somalia and the rights of Somalia, to get more foreign aid out there, and all these other things. That has nothing to do with being an elected congressperson in the United States of America. And the fact that she's still serving in Congress means I don't know what you guys need to do over there, but you need to figure it out and get her voted out immediately.
She was one of the driving forces behind the Minnesota flag change. Like the Minnesota flag and the Somali flag are remarkably similar. You're telling me she didn't have a hand in that? Get the literal F out of here. Now, I told you, don't go Google it. Don't you dare Google that she could have, possibly married her brother. I said that because I'm going to do it for you. Ilhan Omar reacts to news that claims to confirm that she married her brother. Her response to this was probably the funniest part of it all. This updated on February 24th, 2025. An old rumor that Rep. Ilhan Omar married her brother and committed immigration fraud resurfaces. A report claimed it is not anymore a rumor, as a personal friend now confirmed on record that she indeed married her brother. The favorite thing that I ever saw is Ilhan Omar's response. So this is the friend down here. You can see highlighted in gray. No post from Ilhan or Ilhan MN or Ilhan says this was confirmed to be true. And her response in eloquence here, the only thing that is confirmed is your stupidity. Hope that helps. Did she marry your brother? Adam, just tell me. You're an intel guy.
100%.
You know,
100%. Like, yep. No, don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm just going to quote another.
That's how those people are. That's how those people are. Anyone who's been to the Middle East knows that's exactly how these people are, right?
And Somalia specifically, yeah. Somalia specifically,
if you all think America sucks so bad, take one step into any other country outside the United States. And I'll even say the same thing about Germany and France and England. I've been all over the place, and it's like, yeah, okay, like it's nice, but there's nothing more American than coming home and saluting my fucking indoor plumbing that actually works. You know, the grout is actually put in correctly in my tile. My doors are square. The electricity works without lighting my house on fire. I'm not, for the most part, especially where I live, I'm not running the risk of walking outside and being stabbed. And then actually, if I call 911, the sheriffs are actually going to show up and do something, right? We live in the best country in the world. And the fact that Americans who've never traveled outside the United States, like I've been to plenty of third world shitholes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a direct quote from the president himself. It's true. It is not an exaggeration. Go to even go to the Caribbean, go on a 7-day cruise on some fat person carnival tour and step outside the tourist area and see how much you like Barbados and Jamaica. Okay. Just go there and see what it's like. It is not America, and America is the freest and best country in the world. And we are so blessed and from all the God-given things that we are given on a daily basis. And for people like Ilhan Omar to come in here and crap all over the Constitution, take away the constitutional rights of Americans on a daily basis, and then disrespect the people that even elected her technically is just a disgrace to what our founding fathers stand for.
And it plays into a larger thing. Suicidal empathy is something that the leftists in this country cling to. And there's this assumption that all cultures are equal. They assimilate just great. I will tell you from personal experience, from being in the country, the Somali culture does not assimilate. The Somalis have a very classic phrase that they use, and it's me and my brother against my cousin, me and my cousin against my tribe, me and my tribe against the world. This is how there is no nationalism. There is tribalism, and those things are at odds with what it is that we want to do. We are the global hegemon. We do want to be the melting pot, but there is an ask as part of that. If you immigrate here, you have to assimilate to our culture. Ilhan Omar has risen to power all while not assimilating to the American way of life, the American dream, our cultures, our morals, our values. And that speaks largely to the inability of certain cultures to assimilate in the larger melting pot that is America. And she is just an outgrowth of that. And she's just highly freaking annoying and stupid. The narcissism and the hubris it needs to talk like she's smarter than the American citizen. Like it maddens me.
Put her and Jasmine Crockett in a closet and see what happens after
that. Put him in a plane crash and then do it from there. Now you might be thinking that has to be it, right? That has to be Aaron's most hated politician of the week. Hold my beer, says one Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw was caught on a hot mic. He was basically conducting an interview, and he said this.
Have you ever met Tucker?
Okay, so first of all, Eye Patch McCain, no, you will not fucking kill him. The most crazy thing about that video is they've tried to delete it. They've went and tried to scrub it and delete it and go back and make sure that they can't absolutely, erase it from the internet. But Dan, the internet is forever. You're conducting insider trading. You're a rhino, a Republican in name only. You've disgraced the Navy SEALs. Everything about you is absolutely disgusting. How in the world did Dan Crenshaw, number one, rise to power, especially in the place where he is? He's a Texas lawmaker. But number two, what the fuck is he doing?
I don't know. And this is a heartbreaking thing because years ago, the first podcast I was ever on, before I even started podcasting, ironically, I was on Andy Stump's Cleared Hot podcast. And we were talking about,
big time. Look at you.
Yeah. First podcast was the biggest podcast I've ever been on. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Go figure.
Nowhere to go but down, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. And now I'm here. So I mean, and this is when he had just gotten elected into Congress. I think it was 2019, and we were all hopeful that this Navy SEAL was going to do things. And this is before we even formulated the DeRito Act, and before I even was going into Congress. And I was even, asking on Andy Stump's podcast, like, hey, Dan Crenshaw, let's do something. Let's work together to fix the Air Force Academy. You seem like a good guy that's coming in here to do things. And then my first experience in Congress, he completely ignored me like I didn't exist. And I just sat there, just went, you know what, man? Like, I'm not as cool as you. I'm not a cool guy, right? But I showed up to your office in uniform, trying to talk to you guys, and you guys basically told me to piss off. Like, you don't advocate for the American service member. You only advocate for yourself. And I think the thing that really pissed me off was all the insider trading. It was right. He's like, what, the second highest earning member in Congress at this point? And I just sat there, went, and it's like, I didn't openly attack him because I was like, trying to grow my Instagram and trying to grow my social influence at the time. And I didn't want to start attacking representatives. But then when I came back from deployment and I did it again, I was just like, you know what? If you're corrupt, you're moral and unethical, I'm just going to say it. And I don't care. And I will get yelled at by my commander all day. But you know what? I'm not on a paid duty status, and nothing I say represents a DOD or any of that whole jazz that I have to say. Right. But it's so disappointing to see people who use their position in the military with whatever ribbons, ranks, and awards and schools that you went to as an excuse for bad behavior and disgracing everything that you stood for. And then the guys that came before you and the guys that are going to come after you, right? It's so disheartening to see people who are put in a position such as, the Navy SEALs and just completely disregard everything and then use political pawning as a way of self-enrichment. And it's just something that I hope that the vet bro community or whatever else moving forward, hey, thank you for your service. You did your time. You got some cool shit on the walls. Good for you. But at the end of the day, we don't take our uniform off. We have to always abide by the Constitution that we swore to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And most of the enemies that I have fought are domestic, right? I will tell you 100%. I respected a lot of the insurgents overseas a lot more than I did a lot of people in the military because they were fighting for their cause. They fought for what they believed in. And yeah, they're shitheads and we don't agree with what they're doing, but they were willing to die to protect their country and their families and what they believed in. I mean, I'll gladly order the airstrike and take your life. Thank you for playing, try again. But watching some people who are American service members and veterans literally go against the oath that they took is just one of the most disheartening things I've had to witness in the past several years.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the chat here, Simon, so the guy Aaron is interviewing is in the Navy and he's an officer. You say, okay, in the chat. No, guys, did you listen to the intro? He was in the Army, went to the Air Force Academy, and now because he's finally getting some retribution for the, the basically all the wrongs that he's probably going to get his commission back, but he won't need it because he's going to do bigger stuff than that. So in your face, get it right.
And then,
real-time
okay, to be fair, partially I was in the Navy a short period of time. I did go to Marine Officer Candidate School and I was cross-commissioning out of the Air Force into the Marines, and that didn't work out because of Obama and a bunch of 3-star generals that I pissed on. And then I ended up in the Army. So technically I was in the Navy for a very short period of time. The Department of the Navy, though, that's the men's department, in case you guys didn't know that.
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps.
I take it back. You're gay. You're super gay.
My story is really stupid. You guys can look me up on, on Spotify. You can listen to the Failure podcast and Andy Stump's podcast, Cleared Hot, and find out my whole background story to that. But yeah, it's everything worked out for a reason, though, because honestly, I wouldn't be here today where I am talking to Aaron and actually making a difference in this country and actually getting people motivated to run for office to replace people like Ilhan Omar and Dan Crenshaw, because you guys can do it. You guys in the chat, I swear to God, I was a zero nobody, had no idea what I was doing. I showed up to a local Republican meeting. Next thing I know, I was at Donald Trump's house three times in a row. Right. So you can do it. You just got to put the effort in and put the work, start talking and start making your representatives accountable to what they do for their jobs. It's not that hard. Just go and say something. Say something. You can do it.
Be brave. Go out and do it. Everybody has it in them. So the thing, just like you, there was a singular thing that turned the worm for me with Dan Crenshaw. It wasn't just the insider trading, wasn't all the other stuff, but it was his stance on his red flag laws. In 2019, after the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, Crenshaw suggested, sorry, the video is playing again, that a positive way to prevent gun violence, if implemented with due process protections. He argued that state-level red flag laws could be a tool to prevent dangerous individuals from acquiring firearms without violating Second Amendment rights. but didn't Dan just threaten to kill someone? Here's a handy thing. The easiest
Base
amendment.
level of the RNC, dude. Base level Republican values is like pro-life, pro-gun.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
They put it on the
arguments that
pamphlet.
are non-negotiable.
Right, exactly. The Second Amendment is the easiest one to understand. They made it second. It's only 27 words long and ends with shall not be infringed. Red flag laws are an infringement. So Dan Crenshaw, congratulations, motherfucker. Eye Patch McCain, you are the absolute worst politician of the week. And by the way, you were in a head-to-head contest with Ilhan Omar and you won. So technically you lost. Adam, I'm going to turn it over for you. I want you to plug everything that you're doing and everywhere that you are and say thank you as the first guest on the War Room SITREP. Brother, you killed it. You can come back anytime. Where can everybody find you? What do you care about?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on adamderito.com. That's my website for all the political advocacy work I do. In the case I'm working on to pass the Dorito Act in Congress, you can look that up. It's a really fun bill that the DOD absolutely hates me about. My personal Instagram is adam.derito2010. You have to look it up specifically since I'm shadow banned, or you can follow Dark Saber Productions. That's the new Instagram I started that is not shadow banned that I tag everybody else in. I come on the show with Aaron now. And I also am on the I Came With Fire podcast occasion on Friday. I also run the Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast, which is kind of like my informal show. And then the bigger show that I do for all the advocacy work I do is the Dark Saber podcast, which is about retaliation at the Air Force Academy and reforming our federal service academies to make sure we have the absolute best officers, non-negotiable, serving our future men and women in the Air Force and the Space Force, the Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, whole 9 yards, right? So it is absolutely essential. And Aaron, I want to thank you once again. You've been a great friend. Your wife actually was one of my freshmen at the Air Force Academy.
Yep.
Brought her through basic training, right? I'm so glad we made that connection over the years. And I am so proud of you as the America First Veterans Alliance, state president for Nevada. I'm happy to work with you. And we are actually really doing the work. We're doing a lot of fundraising. We're going to get candidates into office to replace the Crenshaws and the Ilhan Omars, because if we don't do it, no one else is going to. So thanks again for bringing me on the show.
You're damn right, of course. And I can't wait to see what you're doing. You got big things on the table. Proud to work with you in this little initiative that we got going. I'm proud to say that we had a great impact on the conservative movement this last election. And we're going to keep going, because I won't stop until it's all ashes and we can build anew. Just like they said in what show? What's the ranch show where everybody's trying to take the dude's ranch all the time? Freaking Yellowstone. Yeah, you can't fix a broken wagon wheel, but you could definitely make a new one from all the pieces, and that's what we intend to do. If we got to go by, with, around, or through, that's how we're going to get there. I want to say thanks to everybody in the chat for coming out. Get this show to everybody you know. Hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment when you see it get posted to the YouTube channel. We're live every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the War Room going live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Shout out to the Aaron Love Hate Club. I finally got that one right. Make sure to follow everything we're doing. If you're looking for Adam on Instagram, you can find us collaborating on memes every single day almost. You can find Adam everywhere he told you before. Thanks to everybody that's coming out in the chat. We love you. We will see you next time on the War Room SITREP. See you next Tuesday. We're out here.
Pop is in and zero your weapons.